A lifetime of hard work, children laughing in the kitchen, family photos on a restaurant wall, a legacy that lives on. It all comes from the power of a conversation, like the one Tommy Hall had with First Horizon Bank about taking over his father's Charleston-based restaurant business. Now the table is set for a whole new generation. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Tommy. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Are we done with pleasantries? We can get on with the show?
Well, I came in, you and I were chatting, get the chance to say hi to my friend there,
Overture, hit the lights, this is it. No?
Yeah. It's Overture, Curtain, Lights. This is it.
Is that what it is? Overture, Curtain, Lights?
Yeah.
Oh, that was hit the lights.
No, it's curtain, lights. Curtain, lights.
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, I thought it was overture. And
yeah, I still don't know what the hell the words were for the Flintstones theme song. I've looked them up, and it still doesn't make sense.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones. They're the modern Stoners family from the town of Bedrock. Oh, my God.
They're a page right out of history.
Something.
That is where it loses me, yeah.
Oh, man. I used to know this off by heart.
Oh, man. See?
Something.
Okay, now do the Jetsons.
Jetsons.
Meet George Jetson.
Jane, his wife. His boy, Elroy.
Daughter, Judy.
Judy, yeah, right. Dog Astro. Retro.
I think you might have it backwards. Doesn't it start with his boy, Elroy, then go to the older daughter, Judy, and then Jane, his wife, because
she takes his wallet as she leaves, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, she's the last one out of the car.
I didn't know there was going to be a test.
Oh, yeah. You failed 1960s Hanna-Barbera history, sorry.
It's the story of a man named Brady who was busy with three boys of his own.
Okay, now Gilligan's Island, go!
I was just going to say that. Gilligan's Island was...
now sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a trip that started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship.
Actually, what we should do is, hey, here we come, walking down the street.
Get the dirtiest looks from
everyone we meet. Hey, we're the monkeys. We forgot to put that
tribute
Mike
to Mike Nesmith. Yes. You were like the true musician of the band. And
cheer up, Sleepy Jean.
This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast, Season 5, Episode 22. My name is Tim Mitchell, and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello, children.
And we also are joined... Is that the new catchphrase? Is that the one?
I'm working some stuff out. I don't have Jaime's, instant gravitas. I need to try and mix it up, And
now it's time to ask Jaime Lopez Jr., how's it going?
How's it going in Season 4, Episode 22, number 106? I think that was my mistake.
Your mistake?
Apologies.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think you put that in there. I'm pretty sure I put the skeleton for this episode, so that is my mistake.
Really?
I mean, if you want to take claim to it, if you remember better than I do, but I'm pretty sure that was me.
Maybe. Yeah, but no, it's supposed to be... We changed it. It used to say Episode 106, which was throwing me off all the time. Now it's Season 4, Episode 22. Is it 22?
Correct.
Yeah, it is 22.
Well, yeah, so it's definitely 22. Mm-hmm. Season 4 is what it is, not Season 5. I just noticed that in the
Oh, you put Season 5? What?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought I just copied the other one and then changed one value, but apparently I was a little overeager with changing values.
I've decided what I would really like for the holidays as a gift, and I would like, specifically from you, Tim, I would like you to do a mash of all of Jaime's How's It Goings from all 106 episodes of this podcast.
No.
As one great big long, how's it going?
Yeah, I think, what we should, you realize we actually have done like 340 episodes of More Than Just Code.
And I must admit, I listened to a handful of them because it's a little above my knowledge base. But
really?
Does Jaime always say, how's it going on that too?
Yep.
Pretty sure I do. But yeah, the supercut would confirm it, right?
Now I want all 400 of those.
Yeah, pretty much. It's how's it going? That's his catchphrase. And driving it home. And he made that first mistake, and we've never let him forget it. So
like driving it home.
Yeah. So I make a point of saying, for those of you driving at home, if I'm on the show by myself with somebody, and Mark and Jaime aren't around, I say that. What is it?
I like transporting it home. I thought that was very clever. I might just stumbled on that early.
It's the more than just podcast, morphing into the next thing. It's the same riff.
Welcome to the More Than Just Podcast Network, where we have running gags. Listen to them all.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and find the see the thing about it is what really disappoints me is people have not gone back and found the Game of Thrones Easter eggs that I put in the art. That's all I'm going to say.
I was going to say I know what they are, but yeah. Here's a treasure hunt for you. That's a holiday gift to you, the audience.
Yeah, I think I might have changed one of our host pictures with an Easter egg in it. Anyway, I'll leave that for the fans to. But I'm burning up time because we have no fact check. We were just perfect last week, so
that's exceptional. Yes.
Well, except for the fact that I just finished editing the show like an hour ago, so I haven't done the actual review to see if we did in fact have some fact check. So stay tuned next week for more fact check, possibly, maybe. I don't know. I usually find the fact check stuff while I'm editing a show, but anyway, there we go. So we'll just dig right into the headlines with Jaime Lopez Jr. taking the con. You see what I did there?
First thing we've got up here is the news that Marvel's Eternals movie is coming to Disney Plus for free on January 12th.
Or as free as Disney Plus is.
Yeah, it's one of those free if you've got it sort of thing. It's not the premium, $30 sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, but you know what? We talked about this on the show last week because I know because I just finished editing it an hour ago, that Disney Plus has sort of become the de facto you gotta have it, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of like Netflix, water, indoor plumbing, Disney Plus. Those are the sort of staples of life these days, right?
Pretty much.
Have you seen it yet, Jaime?
I have not, and apparently I will on January 12th.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's probably the best way to watch it, I think. It was interesting. It looked very pretty.
It was visually interesting. It was just a little all over the place.
Yeah.
And more stuff coming out. We've got the first trailer, kind of more of like a teaser trailer of anything. First look trailers, look what they actually say, for Paramount Plus's Halo live-action TV show based on the video game series.
Have you guys played that?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You said that as if it's like you should play it.
Well, yeah. It's one of the seminal
classic.
It's one of the seminal games of the 21st century.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like, the same way that you assume if somebody had an Atari, they probably played Pac-Man or Space Invaders kind of thing.
Right,
if they had a Nintendo entertainment system or Famicom, they probably played Super Mario Brothers. For people who are a little bit younger than us, perfectly reasonable that Halo might have been the first game they played on their first game system, the Xbox, the original one. So,
and it was the reason to buy a 360 was to get Halo 3, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty killer property. So, not surprised that they've turned it into live action stuff. I think I've seen maybe one or two animated items, I want to say on Netflix. So not surprising that Paramount Plus is putting some money behind this.
Yeah, and I shared a clip with you guys that Halo was actually introduced at a Macworld by Steve Jobs because it was on Mac. And I think, is it Bungie that Microsoft bought that made that game?
Yep.
Correct. Yeah, so that was kind of a scoop. So it was interesting. Like I think it was OpenGLES or OpenGL or something like that it was written in originally, and so Steve Jobs actually introduced it, and then Microsoft snatched it right away from him. Anyway, okay, cool. Well, I'm up next with some Matrix news. I've got a lot of Matrix news here today, folks. So strap in. So we talked about Hugo Weaving not coming back to the Resurrections version of Matrix, but there is an Agent Smith character, and I've got a trailer here showing the actor who's playing Agent Smith. So I'll leave that in the show notes for you to watch and see if you haven't already seen Matrix Resurrections by the time you get to the show, which is still doubtful, as Jonathan will fill us in later. Mm-hmm. And the next little piece I've got is really kind of interesting. It's a 20-minute video that's been made. It's been making rounds for the last week, but Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss were both in an interview where they're sitting on a couch talking about the making of The Matrix Resurrection, and they go through a really interesting thing. And part of the clip is they show basically a full figure of Keanu Reeves as the younger Neo, with the short hair and the whoa and all that kind of stuff from the original movie 20 years ago. And because he looks like John Wick now. I mean, I think that's sort of the look that Keanu going going for
the longer hair, the beard,
the beard, the unshaven cheeks and all that kind of stuff, right? And so it's interesting to see him that way. But they have an avatar version of him, like a motion capture version of him at the age that he's at now. Plus, they have one of him as the younger Neo, and there's a sort of a couple of films I've seen around, and they also did Carrie Ann Moss too for the movie, because there's a commercial or a scene where they're driving in a car as their younger selves, and so it's interesting because this whole sort of like, is it really them, or do they really need the actor to be in the shot kind of deal? Is like, it's that good. Like if you saw the clip, when they first sort of switch over to the younger Neo, you kind of get it looks like like the Star Wars Rogue One kind of stuff where they did Peter Cushing and Fisher.
Carrie Fisher.
That's the way my brain works, John. You should know that better.
Oh, that's why I'm here. I understand that's my role here on the show.
Yeah. But it's really fascinating to see the sort of the stuff that's coming out of it. Like, the big thing in the original Matrix was that, it won the Academy Awards for special effects and stuff like that, because they had that bullet time thing, which I'll talk about in a bit as well. But that was sort of the groundbreaking thing that did that for them. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, the reason I bought a DVD player was because of the Matrix, right? I think we probably had a PlayStation 2 in the family at that point in time, but I didn't personally have one. So anyway, that's cool. So definitely watch this video. Check out the story. They talk about the making of the movie, and they also show some of the visual effects, like the red chairs that Neo sees in the construct when Lawrence Fishburne is introducing a Neo to the whole idea of the Matrix, right? Anyway, the training programs, I guess. So that's me with Carrie Ann and Matrix. We'll come back to the Matrix in a bit, but over to Jonathan.
Yeah, we had a couple of deaths to talk about this week. The first one is Anne Rice.
3 deaths to talk about this week.
We have 3 deaths to talk about this week, but we're going to start with Anne Rice, who, of course, her most famous work is Interview with the Vampire, which was adapted into a major motion picture with some guy, Tom something or other, and Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
And
the young girl, what was her name?
Well, that's Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst, yes.
Yeah, when she was like 10 or something. So she was a pretty influential author. She started her career in the 70s. She wrote Interview with the Vampire. She wrote a whole bunch of those vampire Lestat stories that were quite popular. She was sort of instrumental in sort of that whole goth vampire monster wave that sort of carried through into the 80s and 90s, and pretty big career for her. So she died this week at the age of 80, and obviously big career for her. I want to ask something before we carry on. Was Keanu Reeves in that movie too? Interview with the Vampire? He was in some vampire movie. He was in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Oh, Dracula. Playing, right. That's right. He was, whoa, is like the only word that comes to mind for that one. That is one of the finest examples of why not to do a bad accent if you can't do accents in film history. It was not quite as bad as Tom Cruise in Far and Away trying to do an Irish accent, but it was pretty terrible trying to do a British accent. It was pretty awful. It was pretty awful. The other death that I have here is Masayuki Uemura, who is a name you probably don't recognize, but damn if you haven't experienced his work, or certainly the legacy of his work. He was the pioneer of computer video games, home consoles, and he was the guy who basically created the NES, the original 1980s Nintendo Entertainment System, and he was the lead architect in developing this home console that just absolutely took the world by storm and really brought video games forward after a bit of the fizzle out from the sort of Atari post-ET crash. The Nintendo really just revitalized home video gaming and took it forward from there. So, I mean, this man leaves behind an incredible legacy. Wanted to give him a shout out because that's a big contribution to culture.
Yeah, and of course Mike Nesmith passed away this week of natural causes apparently. But he just finished touring with Mickey Dolenz. I think people were posting videos. I saw him like maybe 2 weeks ago, singing the hits from the Monkees as well.
Yep, the third three monkeys down, one monkey to go.
Yeah, and it's funny, I completely forgot that I used to watch the Monkees all the time. I mean, that was another show that was on TV in reruns in the 70s as well. So yeah, I think Saturday was on, kind of thing.
Even when I was a kid, it was on all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next one is interesting. So the statement here is that Netflix is making a live action Mega Man movie. Mega Man being the longtime video game series that originated on the Nintendo Entertainment System, or Famicom. So kind of interesting to see, more video game properties. We just talked about Halo a few minutes ago, and now Mega Man. Of course, there's the Super Mario Brothers movie that I think that one's an animated one. This one is live action for reasons that do not make sense to me, because it seems like it would work really. I mean, this is an audio only medium, but for those of you transporting at home, if you pull off to the side of the road and check the show notes, they could just take a 3D animated sort of movie and make a really cool thing, and it'd be way easier than trying to please the fans with a live action thing. See Sonic the Hedgehog, see Cowboy Bebop, but nevertheless they're gonna go for it, and this is a popular character, not as meteoric of a character as Mario, but still in the Hall of Fame.
Cool. I actually remember playing that game on one of Jonathan's systems, so yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It does speak to it, though. It's kind of funny that they just keep going to the IP well, right? They can't come up with like an entirely original concept. They're just like, oh, what hasn't been made into a movie yet? Oh, Mega Man, sure, yeah.
But you know what? It's funny, like you guys say that, but like for the last 10, 15 years, they've been digging into my well, right? And bringing back all the things that I would have watched when I was a kid. Like, like I give you a perfect example, Maverick. Remember the Maverick movie?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which was like, what? With Will Smith and Kevin Kline, but the whole...
Oh, no, that was Wild Wild West. Maverick was...
Wild Wild West, yeah, that's another one. Maverick as well, I think, but Maverick was probably...
Mel Gibson and...
Mel Gibson,
oh, God, who else was in that? James... oh, God, what was the guy? The original actor was in it, right? James Garland?
James Garner.
Garner, yes.
Yeah.
James Garner.
He was a card shark in that one. And then also they keep bringing those ones back. And the reason they do that, and the reason why, you see all these, gray-haired guys with ponytails going to see concerts these days is because we now have money, right? And like in as much as we had money to go see concerts and movies and stuff, now you guys have money, so they're going to your sort of stuff. This is why we're getting X-Men and we're getting, all the video game titles coming back out now, right? Makes sense, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true that nostalgia is a powerful motivator. And, I joked with my sons as we, over the last few years, have sort of put away some of their old toys. It's funny how we just continually, in this sort of cyclical routine, we end up... everybody sort of gets wistful for the things that they enjoyed in their youth. So people go back and read the old books, they read the old comics, they watch the old movies. Then, of course, all those things start to generate heat again. So then, of course, the studios jump on those things and, musical trends come around and fashion trends come around. It all just keeps going around in circles.
I put another link in here as to, will this movie have as great of a theme song as the 1990s Mega Man TV show? with wonderful lyrics, super fighting robot, Mega Man, repeated many, many times, and then fighting to save the world. It slaps more than that, kiddos.
I'm not quite getting it. I'm not quite getting it, Jaime. Can you sing it for me?
Can you sing it for us? I think we already sang in this episode. Could you sing for us?
It's mostly electronic music. That is the sort of like bass line, and it's super fighting robot Mega Man, super fighting robot Mega Man. So
we made Jaime sing on the show.
I love it.
It probably gets better residuals because of having lyrics versus just being purely
don't sing anymore. We can't afford it. Don't sing anymore.
That's right.
Speaking of kicking a dead horse.
Well, yeah. Or a beast, as the case may be. So, Fantastic Beasts Part 3.
I just want to, I always go on about how George Lucas said there was 3 movies, and he made up this whole thing about 6 movies. And oh no, I meant 9 movies. And oh no, maybe 12 or 15 movies, right?
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling's, I'm only writing 7 books.
Yeah. And then some movies and a play. And by the way, people don't like me anymore because of what I say on online on social media. So I'm going to try and do things differently. Fantastic Beasts 3: The Secrets of Dumbledore. We got our first trailer this week and a little more in-depth look. And it's funny because the series obviously started with, focusing on the character of Newt Scamander and sort of assembling this group. And bit by bit, they seem to be sort of clawing him into the background a little bit. And it seems like they're going to pull some of the fan favorite stuff a little more closer to the front, hence the word Dumbledore in the title and wanting people to suddenly pay more attention to it. So
yeah. Did you watch the trailer?
I did watch the trailer, and it's interesting. I was going to comment on the fact that this was our first really good look at Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald, of course, having replaced the deposed Johnny Depp following his scandal.
Yes. Right.
So interesting. I wonder how they might address that, or if they'll bother to address that, or if they'll just wash it away and just say, "Well, it is what it is." But
he's put on some weight, COVID weight.
A significant amount of weight. It is couldn't have found 2 people differently proportioned than Mads Mikkelsen and Johnny Depp, but
There were 2 things that they said in the trailer that I thought were significant. One was that he says, as he's pulling the threads out of the head, I forget what they call those things, the pensives, right?
Yeah, pulling the memories out, yeah.
Yeah, that he's, going to create or something to do with the most powerful wizard of all time sort of deal, right? And yet, wasn't that Tom Riddle?
Well, before Tom Riddle, it was Grindelwald, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. In the books, they certainly make reference to the fact that Grindelwald was sort of the big bad before Tom Riddle was the big bad. Voldemort was the big bad. So,
and at one point, Jude Law says to somebody else, 4 points to Gryffindor.
Yeah.
What?
Yep. Yeah, it's a thing.
I mean, was the school in existence supposedly by that time?
Oh yeah, the school's been around for like 1,000 years at this point.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, I'll buy it then.
But yeah, it's definitely I suspect there might be a smidgen of revisionist history mixed into this, just having looked at the trailer and how they're sort of address. I mean, obviously we knew some of the events that had happened. We didn't know how they happened. We know that there was this huge legendary fight between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, which obviously this whole series is building towards. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see as this starts to come together. I really like the Harry Potter universe. I've definitely enjoyed the books, the movies, all of it. I wish J.K. Rowling would shh. But at the same time, I'm curious about this movie. I don't know. It's taken them so long to churn these ones out. It's hard to sort of I can't even barely remember when they started showing this trailer. I was like, oh yeah, where did we leave that character again? And what was happening?
Yeah,
I was just completely lost. And I'm sure that by the time this gets all hyped up and they do all the promotion and everything else, I'm sure I will cycle back around, rewatch the first 2 and be more psyched for it. But in the interim, I was just like, what's happening again?
So is she writing these, or
I believe she is, or she is working on them. I think she's working on the screenplay, but I think she has co-writers. I can't recall off the top of my head.
Well, it's common. It's a common thing in the art world that an artist hires younger people to help, apprentices or whatever, to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be that she's working on the plot. Like, she has a concept of how this went down.
Executive editor sort of thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's possible that they're working on specifically dialogue, scene structure, that kind of stuff. But she's working on, the big beats and that too. Saying okay, you have to hit these 20 marks in the movie. The rest of it, you can fill in the blanks or whatever. But yeah, I'm always fascinated by that. I really would, as somebody who has dabbled a little as a writer, I do find the idea of collaboration like that. I've worked as a collaborative writer on journalistic pieces, and just sharing contributions, like where did this paragraph go, where did this paragraph go, how do you build a structure, even on like a 3,000 word journalistic piece, is challenging. I cannot imagine writing a book like that or writing a screenplay like that. It must be very, very challenging to sort of say, okay, well, this is better than that, this should go, this should stay. Like, it must be a really interesting and sometimes challenging process.
Well, I think the whole purpose of writing doing a screenplay has got to be different. I mean, in as much as blocking out for stage play and that kind of stuff would be, right? Because, I mean, our main complaints about, the Harry Potter movies is that they're not as deep or as well thought out as the books, and yet, they have to put it on film, and they can't, you can write things that you just can't film, right?
Of course, yeah.
Or they have to throw away entire trimesters of a school year because they can't get it into a 2-hour movie, right? So,
yeah. I mean,
an owl flies across the screen. You know what I mean? Oh,
well, that's it. And there's that fourth book is just it's like the telephone book. It's just absolutely massive. The Goblet of Fire.
The Goblet of Fire. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They had to cut huge chunks out of that book, and the movie is still extremely long.
Well, and they cut the whole elf. The clothes on the elf.
Spew.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they like in as much as, Star Wars sort of went down the road of having droids and Ewoks as separate, TV cartoon shows, right? They could take the whole elf, unionizing the house elves out of that and create a whole series of, oh no, what have I done? There could be a whole series of movies coming just out of that thread, right?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it seems like this is a franchise that they can... they're almost going the opposite way that we talk about Star Wars, we talk about Marvel, we talk about just how much there is. Harry Potter and the Harry Potter verse has gone kind of the opposite direction. Like, they are sort of very deliberate. They're deliberately keeping it as this movie franchise. They kind of haven't gone all the places you could go. You could right now, if you wanted to drive the revenues up and the subscriptions up on HBO Max, because that's Warner Brothers, you could come up with a just set in Hogwarts, teen dramedy set in Hogwarts, and put it on for like 10 seasons, and everybody would subscribe to watch it, and you would make a ton of money off it. But I guess they don't want to do that. Maybe, JK still has that much control over her IP and doesn't want to do that, or whatever the circumstances are.
But isn't there like a Harry Potter themed like park somewhere that I heard about?
Oh yeah, down in Florida, and I believe there's another one. I think there's 2 of them that are Harry Potter themed. But yeah, but that doesn't necessarily impede her world. You know what I mean? Like, if they start telling all these spun-off things where she's not necessarily the master architect, obviously takes it out of her hands. I think that thing is kind of inevitable in the same way that it was for George Lucas. Eventually, George just threw up his hands on Star Wars and said, fine, if you don't like what I'm doing, you effing do it. Give me my $4 billion and go away. And, more power to him. If I was constantly being belittled for my artistic creations, I probably would, consider that path as well. So it makes sense. But yeah, I think it's interesting that for the Harry Potter stuff, they're really being deliberate about it.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, what do you think the monthly subscription for the Harry Potter Plus channel will be?
Yeah. But I mean, we talked about it. We talk about how, Paramount Plus's big hook is Star Trek. We talk about, all these different pieces of IP that are really driving things to certain platforms and why they're essential. You mentioned it right off the top of the show, Tim, the Disney Plus. Disney Plus is Marvel and Star Wars. If you're a Marvel and Star Wars fan, you got to have it. Not to mention Pixar, Disney, blah, 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 blah. You have to have it now. Netflix has certainly done a good job of creating original IP and also buying some IP at that to become pretty required. I wouldn't say it's absolutely essential. It's pretty darned essential, but I don't think it's fully essential, depending on obviously your personal viewing habits. I'm speaking for, I think, our audience and ourselves. Amazon Prime and HBO Max / Crave, they're a little hit and miss, but yeah, I mean, what are the essential pieces of fantasy sci-fi IP that aren't really being tapped into? And Harry Potter's a massive one. Yeah, now, they are doing this thing, actually, I was saving it for my watch list for next week, but they're doing this thing around New Year's this year that is the reunion, right? It's the 20th anniversary of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's, what do they call it here? I can't remember.
Philosopher's Stone.
Is it Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone? Anyways, they...
Sorcerer's Apprentice, yeah.
Yeah, so are they... they're doing this thing on HBO Max in the States, and I believe it's coming here to Crave as well, but it's basically this reunion special where they're getting the whole gang back together and having them talk about this stuff. I wonder truly if Joanne Rowling is going to be part of that, but... I think, there's still a lot of interest in this movie franchise that's beloved, this book franchise that's beloved. To me, it seems interesting. And again, I'm sure there's probably many myriad financial reasons that they haven't done it, but I think they're sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah, they're waiting for the current 35-year-old men and women to get to 50 and 60, and then they can start milking it, right?
Well, and I wonder, they did the stage performance that's still being put on. Oh God, what's it called? Harry Potter and the
Cursed Child, I think?
Cursed Child, yes. Cursed Child. You're a good remembering, Jaime. They're doing that one right now in on stage, and it's supposed to be set in the future and revolves around Harry Potter and his friends when they're fully adults and they have children, and it's about their children being at Hogwarts and the stuff that happens there. I would be genuinely shocked if they didn't back up the Brinks truck to the actors who were in the original movies in about 10 years and say, yeah, you're right about the right age now, and have them revive that, and from that spin out into even more, maybe it's the kids from that class going to have a TV show or who knows what, right?
Yeah, I did actually see a clip, and I'll have to find it for the show notes, of the three main actors, Rupert Grint and Daniel Radcliffe and Emma
Watson.
Emma Watson, sitting down, three chairs sort of facing each other talking about something, but I hadn't actually dialed it in and listened to it, but I did see that this week as well.
Yeah, and it may well be a clip from that special that's coming out. But...
Yeah, I think so, maybe.
Hey, speaking of Christmas,
this sort of popped up on, I think it's on Apple TV, but I saw it on their Twitter account this morning. It's a little 4-minute cartoon for the Ted Lasso people, Jonathan included, who are missing Ted already, except for Jaime. That doesn't matter for him because he doesn't care about Ted Lasso as much as the rest of us.
Well, especially since we spoiled it from a couple episodes back.
I was wondering, is this short, because I saw it on Twitter as well, but didn't watch. Is it spoilerific for season 2?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
In fact, there are some characters who are still on the team that aren't really on the team at the end of the series, but without trying to spoil too much. But anyway, it's a stop motion. I think it's done with actual puppets, stop motion, kind of Christmassy kind of Rankin Bass, Frosty the Snowman kind of thing, where there's a something happens to Ted, some part of his body. I'm not going to name what that is, and it throws everybody for a loop, and they're all helping him out. It's pretty funny. It's got and whenever Roy Kent opens his mouth every now and then, like the what do you call those little ribbon things that you make, like little star things. What do you call those things? Ribbon, that you put them on presents. Bows, like, is that what they call them? Those things you stick on that got like this all folded, like
yeah, it's a bow.
A bow. Anyway, every now and then he'll be saying a sentence, and one will appear in front of his mouth. Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty funny, and it's got everybody in it. It's got all the main cast in it, and pretty good. The only thing is that the coach isn't wearing the pants, which I thought was kind of like odd. But it's enjoyable. It's a good laugh.
Yep.
It's a good laugh. So anyway, check that out. It's a Christmas Ted Lasso Christmas biddy, 4-minute lot short, and I think it's probably on the YouTube and stuff like that. But it is on Apple TV, and I was able to. I don't know. I clicked on the link and I was able to watch it. So I assume other people can too. Even if they don't have Apple, maybe Jaime can just click on it right now and let us know.
Yeah, it's playing in my web browser.
Yeah, okay, that's how I watched it. I just opened it up in Twitter and watched it. So you don't have to have Apple TV to see it.
No, I thought you meant like a call to action at the end or something like that.
No. And this little piece of information, a friend of mine from work, Nicole, pointed out to me today that we had a sort of a celebration holiday lunch, and she mentioned that Futurama is coming back to Adult Swim, and it's coming back this week, I believe, this month. It says here in the caption, right? I don't know if you guys had heard this at all or knew about this, but
this is not new.
Oh, it's reruns.
It's
right?
Reruns returning, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the part I was confused about when I saw your note. I wasn't sure if this meant new episodes. I hadn't heard anything about new episodes.
No, but apparently I guess the show is coming back as something you can watch, which is kind of cool. Like, has it not been on TV for a while? Or mind you, they did a whole bunch of direct to DVD things, didn't they?
Yeah, They did, but those have been adapted into a season, basically. The way they constructed them, they put them out as DVD exclusives when the show was off the air, and then when they brought the show back to air, they basically chopped those into chunks so that they would work as episodes.
I think it's here, at least in the States I can speak to. I think it's on Comedy Central, but it hasn't been on Adult Swim apparently for 14 years, according to this.
Wow. Going back. And the last thing I have before we get into the main meat of the show is, Jaime made me familiar with this, but if you use Slack or you use, I think it's in Teams and it's in HipChat probably, there is a meme called Sad Keanu, which is like a wah wah kind of sentiment. And so this Keanu Reeves was on Colbert's show talking about how he feels about this picture, because he brought it up because he's actually just done a comic book, and the funny thing is that the artist who drew did the art for it actually has a character sitting on a bench, sort of in that sort of sad pouty look, and Keanu says in the thing, I'm going to spoil it for you folks, but he says I was just eating a sandwich and I had a lot on my mind. It wasn't sad or whatever. So the truth behind the sad Keanu is that he was just eating a sandwich.
Yep.
But he was on there talking about the Matrix and about the comic book as well. It's called Berserker.
Berserker. You can't enunciate that one. Berserker.
Berserker. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's BRZRKR. Berserker.
Yeah. Is that a regular character, or is this a new character created for this?
No, he created it himself, and it's one of the hottest books around. They're only halfway. I think it's a 12-issue series, and they're only just, I think, issue 5 may have just come out. They're still pretty early into it.
Yeah. So the one that Stephen Colbert had on the show was the first 4, right? So gathered together in one book, as it were. Yeah,
they did, I think, 10 trillion different variant covers of the first few issues.
Wow.
Oh my god, it is one of the most crazily reprinted. The contents of the book are identical, but they have reprinted that with so many different covers I can't even keep track.
Wow, cool. Alrighty, well, we're at that part of the show, like as I just hinted towards a minute ago, where we'll talk about something Star Trek-ish. And this week, of course, we're talking about Discovery, Season 4, Episode 5, The Examples. And Jaime is going to do the recap, so over to you.
Yeah, this kind of breaks down into 5 sort of sections that I described here, right? There's kind of the overarching thing that happens, which is Zora, the ship's AI's development, which kind of feels like they're leading us down the path of what we saw in the short trek, right? Where it's a fully actualized, intelligent being that has apparently been abandoned for a long time before it was found by, I forget the character's name. I'm sure we'll find that one, right? But you all remember the short trek,
You keep going,
right?
I'll find it for you.
Yeah, I'll find it too.
Then you've got an A story, which is Michael and Book basically trying to help the species of the week, right? So the sort of main series plot continues with the DMA. I forget what that stands for, but it was like the big anomaly that's that destroyed Quajon.
Dark matter anomaly.
Thank you, dark matter anomaly.
Oh, but from now on, I'll be referring to it as the Trek Star, because that's essentially what we're dealing with now.
Yeah, it kind of fits that sort of thing, right? It's this interesting MacGuffin for the background of the whole season. In this case, they're trying to save the species of the week. There's this asteroid system, and we've got the Star Trek trope of a species just unreasonably and irrationally spits in the face of Starfleet, who's here to help. Right, so you've got the I think the administrator of that planet. Right, they're like, all right, that's cool. You got to get everybody out, and our crew is like, hey, wait a minute, but there's like 6 people. They're not near the evacuations. Oh yeah, well those are the prisoners. Whatever, who cares, right? They're not even people to begin with. Right? They're like, no, we're gonna go save them. It's like, all right, cool. And then they go down and try to Michael and Book, go down and try to save these prisoners, and it's pretty well guarded, but there's no guards to unlock stuff. And the prisoners themselves seem like they also want to culturally spit in the face of Starfleet for people who are trying to save them from like dying a horrible death, right? And I wrote the Troy Polamalu led prisoners because I couldn't remember that guy's name, and he absolutely reminded me of the Hall of Fame safety from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Actually, I looked it up because we'll talk a little bit about him more at the end, but his name is Michael Greyeyes, and he is Indigenous Canadians, Plains Cree from Saskatchewan. And he was incredibly captivating.
Yeah.
He was. I think there's a reason they chose that actor for this role of like the 6 prisoners who have their sort of own things. They are, quote, the examples. Like they, for the most part, did like really trivial kind of crimes, and they're there for like life. They're there for 20 years for things like,
Stole food, right?
Yeah, I stole food. I took a joyride in like a helicopter kind of thing. Like, all right, it's not good. Nobody's saying that's good stuff to do, but it's just unreasonable. Except we do find out in this A storyline that, so he's Gray Eyes. What was the character's name? Did you find the character's name? Felix. So that guy had actually...
Not Fritz, Felix.
Yeah.
Right. So that guy had actually murdered somebody, right? Like not intentionally. He was there to steal some stuff. And, he got discovered in the plot to steal and murdered the homeowner. But it turns out, he didn't know the guy's, the victim's daughter was just like in the next room. And oh, by the way, he, stole some stuff. He didn't realize he had stolen their like memory sphere that has their like family tree and history. It's like an heirloom sort of thing for the species.
Yep.
And so he's like been living with that for a long time. And that's in the main storyline of like, got to get prisoners off the planet or off the asteroid before asteroid explodes or gets otherwise destroyed. You have that line that I thought was interesting. You also have the B story, which is Stamets and Reno with Tarka, a new character, apparently a scientist who feels like Stamets on steroids. Take season 1 Stamets, make him even jerkier, make him even more brilliant and less, we're in the 4th season here, and Stamets has evolved quite a bit where they've
no, he's not. He's still petulant and
he is, but having Hugh around,
right?
having his husband around, like really stabilizes him.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, he's still jerky, but he's had a lot of the rough edges polished off of him over the several seasons we have. But this guy Tarka is definitely season 1. You are lesser than me, Stamets, right? He's the lone brilliant genius jerk kind of character. So they're trying to figure out can they simulate in kind of a dangerous way, but can they simulate what the DMA itself is and how it works? And they believe it's not a natural thing, right? They're pretty convinced now. Like they went through, maybe it's Iaconian survivors, maybe it's the Q. No, we haven't heard from the Q in 600 years.
That was an interesting name drop. Yeah.
Well,
let's come back to that.
Ties right back into Picard, right? Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, well, we're in the 32nd century. You take 6 centuries off of that, you get roughly 26th century. Again, not trying to be super accurate, right? Like if you describe like how old is America, I was like, I don't know, it's like more than 200 years, less than 3. Right? I'm not going to get down to exact numbers. So we know that Picard,
something like 10,000 actually, yeah.
We know that Star Trek Picard takes place in around early 25th century. I think it's late 24th, early 25th, right? Mm-hmm. So if you assume he lives a decent chunk into almost 26th century, that's pretty reasonable to say, oh, maybe the Q haven't contacted anybody at all because it was only Q himself who cared sort of obsessively about Picard, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes you also wonder if we may see some resolution with the Q continuum, the trial and all that stuff in Picard.
Do we know if Q actually was not just in Jean-Luc Picard's head?
Because other people saw him, right? He's not quite the Great Kazoo.
From the Flintstones, right? You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody sees him. Like, again, he has that one episode where he just messes with Riker the whole time, too, right? Like, he gives Riker the powers, and
yeah.
And then underneath this, we've also got the C story, which is Culber dealing with his sort of repressed trauma and emotions. And it's kind of funny because he is taking a very strong role as the ship's counselor beyond just, the sort of physical medical area. And when he talks to Cronenberg's like, aren't you just being like the savior complex? It's like you're just throwing yourself into this work trying to save others because you have unresolved feelings about your demise and return from the dead.
Yeah. Yeah. That scene between Cronenberg as Kovic and Culber was so good. It was so good. Cronenberg just playing it like straight as an arrow. Oh my god, he was so funny.
Yeah, and because they've got this tech. When I saw Kovic glitch out for a little bit, I was like, wait, is that a Paramount Plus thing? Oh no, he's just a hologram because
he's a busy person. Yeah,
but they also, like, for those of you wondering, well, how did you not know he was a hologram? It's like, well, one, like, people just casually transport transport in and out of places. So I thought, oh, maybe
And
I
they
just didn't
pop
see him
in, they
transport in.
don't- yeah.
Right. So when I saw him glitch, I was like, oh, stupid Paramount Plus, why are you glitching? Oh, wait, no, it was literally just him, not the entire scene. So I guess coming back to the way that the whole A-B stories are sort of tied together is, Michael and Book save most of the prisoners except for Felix, who has decided he's going to pay his penance, right? He's like, maybe the anomaly doesn't hit us and I will just live my life out here, or maybe it does hit us and I'm just going to die. But he hands over the little family heirloom sphere over to Michael. He's like, hey, go give it to this family name, right? This, please do me that honor of it. We do end up seeing.
Have these people not heard of the blockchain either? That's my first thing I thought of when they illuminate the tree, right?
I mean, I think it's different. We can go into like what we saw out of Star Trek Picard of like Picard has the like quantum level copy of his stuff, right? Like he just shoves it all in a shoebox and it gets, at a quantum level reconstructed. Is it,
and it's like Mr. Spock with his little floppy disks. Exactly. Yeah.
Is it exactly the same? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's in an era where you can replicate anything at will. How do we put value on physical objects? I could see how it's like, no, it is this one. We can check its quantum signature. We can check its etc. Like this is the one that grandpappy's grandpappy started, right? Yes, we could, right click and duplicate and call it good, but it's not the same, right? It's not the one that he actually touched.
Yeah,
with
there'll still be you'd think for centuries to come, as much as we are in one way enabling a future where physical possessions are less valuable, I think in a way that'll make them more valuable, specifically heirlooms and things like that, things that belonged to older generations, etc. I think that's how you're supposed to view it, is that, some things are irreplaceable, I think is the message here, right?
Yeah. So he ends up dying. The disco, zips away, and we tie things together with the final scene with Book getting drunk in the 10 forward bar equivalent, and Tarka coming up and talking about kind of how far along they got. Book's like insanely obsessed with the idea of like, if it's not a natural phenomenon, if there's a people, I want to go punch said people in the face. Yeah. Right. And I think you can help me. And Tarka's like, yo, I don't know who it is yet. But it seems like those two will get up to things, because Tarka himself has, am I correct in thinking that scar was like the emerald chain bomb thing that they had in his neck? It probably was removed.
I was going to ask about that actually.
That was my guess. I did do I thought about it, and then I looked to see if anybody had any sort of theories online. I didn't really see much that other than people just sort of thinking mysterious mark on the back of his neck. But I think, Jaime, you're bang on. I think that was supposed to be a reference to him having been, subjugated at the hands of somebody at some point, and clearly understanding pain in a way that Book can relate to.
Yeah. So there we go. That's how things tie together. There is one cute scene with Culber and Stamets, having the getting ready to go to sleep sort of conversation, and Stamets talking about like, oh, this dude's such a jerk. It's totally only cares about his work. Culber's like, I live with you, right? Like, this is exactly you. Yeah. I love you despite these things.
Yeah.
Well, and then they both look at each other and realize that they're both kind of narcissistic and that they're both kind of obsessed with their work, and they're like, oh, I guess we're both in love with ourselves, sort of like, it's a pretty funny scene.
And there we go.
Did you mention Jet Reno?
I briefly in the B story with Stamets and Reno and Tarka. She had some good scenes there, and it looks pretty good in the Operations Yellow. I think the costumes for the uniforms are really spot on this year.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last week. Like, man, whoever's responsible for the costume design, we really should. I'll look that up for next week. But damn, they are killing it this year. So last week we had the sort of quote unquote surprise of Tilly departing Disco to go to Starfleet Academy. It appears that Adira went with her.
Oh, really?
I didn't see Adira in this episode, and
no, I didn't either. Yeah, no,
it made me wonder if maybe, because she does say they say in last week's episode that they have made friends for the first time, and we knew that Tilly was going. We saw Tilly going by herself. We didn't see Adira go as well, but I wonder if
I'm
that's...
trying to remember, what was Adira's origin story on the show? Like, did they find her somewhere? Or?
Adira, they grew up on a generational ship, I think they said.
Yeah.
They said that they grew up on a generation ship, and they got involved in the Federation stuff, I think because of Tall, right?
But she's from this time, though, right? She's from this time.
No, they're from the future, yeah. Like they're from the now. But I think they were supposed to have bonded with that group of cadets, and I don't know if they've joined the Starfleet Academy now, because they say last episode that they are an ensign now, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, it could be that they just weren't on this week's episode, but I wonder. Did it not? It occurred to me after we had our conversation last week, and I regretted not bringing it up, but did it not seem like a backdoor pilot for like sometimes they do that where they bring on like certain characters and situations, and then you're like, oh, and then they're going to spin that off into something else, like, the sort of the Georgiou stuff where, they've laid enough groundwork that when they eventually do a Georgiou series, you're like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense as a spin-off from this. Does Starfleet Academy in the future, reviving Starfleet Academy with like Tilly and Adira and Kovich, not seem like a series?
Hadn't thought about that.
Feels like that's why they might be having them hang around in these plots where, if it picks up traction, they can have a natural launching point. If it doesn't, oh well, it's not like a huge impact on the story.
It does make sense because in our current generation of Star Trek, it's all in San Francisco. And if you're not, San Francisco's a far away from most of the places these trips go. But it seems like this current academy is somewhere out in the
far reaches of space.
Yeah, but it's accessible somehow, right?
Yeah,
I mean, especially when you see how quickly they can zap in and out with their transporters and stuff.
Well,
right?
And if they're working on advancing the mycelial network and replicating what Disco can do, then that opens up a whole lot of worlds. I don't know. The more I thought about it, the more I thought, so doing a Star Trek Academy series, there's been talk of doing that for 35 years. Like, it's a no-brainer, right? As a show, like, how could you not do that at some point? It seems like an absolute slam dunk, especially in a world where you're trying to get more people invested in the Star Trek universe at different levels, right? So we talk about, obviously, things like Prodigy, things like Lower Decks, things like, the different types of shows with sort of different entry points. Starfleet Academy with a group of young people and then a group of maybe some people that we recognize as the professors and stuff like that. That just seems like an absolute slam dunk. I'd watch it. Okay, so I have a question for you both. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the episode, the magistrate of this sort of asteroid cluster, who has already established himself as a bit of a prat by, saying, we left these 6 people behind and good for them, they deserve to die. So we already don't have good feelings about him. He marches onto the bridge to confront Burnham and sort of, blah, 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 how dare you, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, your planet just got absolutely toasted, so you're a refugee. You're a refugee here aboard the ship now, so maybe you, as now considering you have no authority since there's no place for you, I guess you should probably just back off and get lost. So he storms onto the bridge and confronts her, and then he storms off the bridge. Can anybody just get on a turbo lift nowadays? Like, what?
What? Just walk onto the bridge?
Exactly. Okay, so I think it's funny because, first of all, like, obviously this is an older designed ship. We established that. They retrofitted the Discovery, but if you can site-to-site transport whenever you want, and Burnham uses that all the time, why do you have a turbo lift, first of all? Beyond that, is it literally like is it like an escalator in a department store? Like, can anybody just hop on and go wherever they want? Like, security, hello? Like, and when this guy like storms onto the bridge with a mad look on his face, why don't like 10 people shoot him?
Yeah, or jump in the way and like block him from getting to the captain.
Yeah,
you
like,
would think somewhat valuable, right?
Yeah, and even like, I guess, like, obviously they're trained in diplomacy and everything else, but you think somebody might take a defensive posture or.
Well, it's another interesting thing too. Is like I get that this show is all about Michael Burnham and how wonderful she is and all that kind of stuff, but Picard never went on away missions. Riker went.
Yeah, but I think that was supposed to be because Picard had that conflict with Riker. Riker was like, "I will never let you put yourself in jeopardy like that." Like that they established that right off the hop. That he's like,
he was like, yeah, go ahead. Like, I can run the ship if you die. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, is that the deal? You know, you think that chain of command and all that kind of stuff, like the top. I mean, admittedly, we started this whole thing with Kirk, who's like always had to be the savior of the day, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, but he couldn't do anything without Spock or McCoy. But he had to drag them along in his little. Mind you, that's because they had a small cast, so that makes sense. From we were talking about writing earlier, right?
Yeah.
But you know, it's kind of like every single crisis that comes up, it's like, oh, I'll do that. Oh, I'll like last week she was going to volunteer herself as tribute to between the two societies, where, you know, she was going to vet all the
the Federation and the Navarre,
and then this week she's single-handedly going down to rescue these people, and you can come and run the transporter if you like, and me and Book are going to go break these people out of jail and whatever, right? You know, it's like we're going to do the mercenary task.
Well, and it's funny because if you think about it in a militaristic way, or even a scientific way, when you're talking about, you know, if you look at it as a combination of the U.S. Navy and NASA, right? This is essentially what these two organizations have fused: is space exploration, NASA, scientific research mixed with the structure of a naval vessel. Yeah, there's no world in which the command crew of the vessel does that kind of stuff. They have, you know, all these sub-commanders and delegates and, you know, other people who are responsible for all these different execution of tasks. It doesn't make sense for the captain to lead an away mission ever. Would never fly.
Like Advance. Like Advance is more of a leader than, or the president, Rilek, or they're more leaders than she is. Or even Cronenberg, he pops in and says, sorry, I got a 2:00. And he's out, you know, like I'm already late for my next meeting. Boom, I'm gone. Right?
Yeah.
But you know, it's kind of silly that, you know, I mean, again, like I said, I know we're supposed to think that the world revolves around Sonequa Martin Green, but
and it does. She's fantastic, but
no, I get that, but I mean, but that's the thing. So like then, and I was thinking about that today too. Like, you know, when she goes on the comm and does her announcement to the whole ship. I mean, like, when did she learn to do that? You know, like that's not some, you know, those kind of executive thingies, you know, unless while during this hiatus she went to, like, you know, captain school or something, you know.
Well, she would have gone to like command training and all that. She was an officer.
True, but you know, I don't know if you remember the very like first or second episode, she was like in the brig.
No, she was, but that's not to say she didn't actually go through all that training. She didn't clearly absorb all of it.
My point is, no, I get it. I mean, like, you know, It makes sense from the point of view of convenience. And I mean, like, the reason why we have a transporter in the first place is because they didn't have the budget to land ships and do models and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
That's why they came up with the transporter in the first place, right? You know, and so like that was a convenience of you know, the writing basically supporting the budget of the show originally, right? But and you have to have a single character, but like, why can't there be like a captain like Vance, and then Burnham is like the first or second in command who goes off and does all the mercenary tasks, right?
Yeah.
Like, you would take your best, you know, clandestine people to go break people out of a jail, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
well, you essentially have a tactical team that did those kinds of on-the-planet rescues things and were fully trained, and that's what they did for a living, and of course.
Well, in the Enterprise show, which everybody hates, I mean, they had the military arm as well as the command arm, right? Like, they had the dude with the big two-handed rifle thing.
Yeah, which you would in a time of war, of course. Like, then they're not a scientific vessel, they're a military vessel, and it is what it is, right?
Yeah, so I mean, like this whole, I mean, the Enterprise was always sort of supposed to have been a sciencey kind of thing, but they had security, right? And security were guys wearing red shirts, right? So it's kind of funny how, you know, I don't know, if you're a, you know, militarist purist, you know, then it doesn't make sense that Michael does all the heavy lifting, right?
No, it's just good. It's just good TV as opposed to good logic.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I also think it fits in
like Luke Skywalker has to rescue what's his name, Grogu or whatever his name is.
Oh, Grogu, right?
Yeah, Grogu, yeah.
I also think it kind of fits in with Michael's personality, right? Where she goes rogue. She's, you know, if this is
well, all the more reason not to put her in the command chair.
Well, I mean, if she was if this is a police serial, she would be the hotshot, reckless detective, and either Vance or the president
Really,
would be the sergeant who, like, you're a loose cannon, Michael. You know, turn in your badge and your gun.
She's kind of the Chekhov of this thing. Like, Chekhov was always the loose cannon, right? Like the flighty.
Well, they always. I mean, they've already done. She did that in the first season. She had the bit of the conflict with Vance, and then in this season, she sort of had the bit of the conflict, rubbing things the wrong way with Rillick, who, you know, they're like, they do think that about her. You know, Rillick pretty much says it in the first episode, right? That she's does her things her own way, and, you know, is not necessarily a fan of the way she does things either.
But by the same token, she takes her aside and says, you know, we're doing this way because it's politically more feasible. It's better. It's better for the Federation that we let the bad nun go back to Vulcan for punishment as opposed to us doing it. You know, like she killed a Federation officer. Oh no, you know, like that's a high crime, right?
Oh, you know, it is murder, but
yeah.
A couple of things that I also wanted to hit. So I wanted to talk about the awesome battle bugs, the really cool replicating life forms, indigenous life forms, and turning them into bombs that like throw rotating knives. Like, that was pretty badass. That was really cool. I like that a lot. The other one was Zora. We didn't really talk too much about Zora, but
Jaime talked about her in the very beginning.
Yeah,
like,
so
briefly.
Just to circle back. So you were talking about. I added it to our show notes. There, we were talking about the Calypso episode of Short Treks where she and what did I write down? I wrote down this dude's name. Kraft. Yes. Where Zora is sort of this living, fully, you know, emotional creature as a ship's computer, and in this episode we saw her expressing sympathy when, after the death of Felix, Burnham is feeling very emotional, and Zora can detect it in the way she talks, and so there's this sort of eyebrow raising moment of, you know, Zora's gone from like an interesting sort of take on the whole, you know, sentient computer artificial intelligence thing to like, maybe let's keep an eye on Zora.
Yeah.
I just wonder.
Open the pod bay doors, or
this is what I'm thinking, right? Like, how long before this becomes a problem, right?
Yeah.
But I was also thinking that about the Culber storyline. We've talked about, you know, this sort of serialistic storytelling model versus the episodic story model that Star Trek is employing now. And, you know, they've done a nice job. We talked about how with Book, with Tilly, with these different characters, Stamets, now with Culber, they haven't just sort of sprung these emotional beats, these story arcs on you. They really have laid these foundations, and that they had been clearly building Culber towards a bit of a crisis over the last number of episodes as he's been doing the counseling. We've seen him sort of fraying a little bit, really nice performances by Wilson Cruz. And then in this one, we saw it obviously boil over where he has to confront Kovich and say, listen, I'm melting down here. I need help. It's funny because when people talk about serialized storytelling, they're often talking about how one piece of a major story arc continues through a season. They're not necessarily talking about character development in that organic way, but the writers of the show and the actors have done such a beautiful job this last season of really giving you a logic to the motivations of these characters, to how they're feeling, to how they're doing it. It's beautifully written and it's beautifully performed. I can't say enough about. I think Wilson Cruz is a fantastic actor, and I think his sort of subtle, his facial expressions over the past few episodes, his body language, and then building that towards more overt, you know, development of anxiety, crisis, existentialism, all this stuff. As you know, I'm somebody who's dealt with, you know, anxiety and depression and stuff in my life. Seeing him bring that to the screen felt very, very true to me, and very, very well written and very well executed. That's it. That's my love for him. And just, once more, Michael Grey Eyes. Wow, what a captivating performance. I found myself just hoping that maybe he would make it out. It was very poignant the way that they told the story, but he was I just wanted to watch him soliloquize. Like, he was so good.
Yeah, as he was recently in a TV show called Rutherford Falls. I don't know if you saw that one.
No. I looked up his IMDb and saw he's certainly been on a few things that I've seen over the years.
Yeah.
He's one of the sort of that guy kind of smaller parts. He's certainly, as a Canadian, Canadian content, he pops up in different things, and certainly in some productions that are sort of Indigenous Canadian focused, or Indigenous people in Canada focused. I think it's nice to see a little more. We'll talk in a few minutes about Hawkeye with obviously Alakwa Cox, who is an Indigenous person in America. I think it's nice to see these, a little more representation of a very underrepresented portion of the population. Mm-hmm. And speaking of Hawkeye,
yeah.
So this was moving week on Hawkeye. We got episode 5 entitled Ronin, and this is the penultimate episode. It wraps up its final episode on December 23rd. 22nd is the final episode, December 22nd. This one, so I leaned over to my son before the episode started. I said, I have one theory and one thing I won't spoil for you, but I have a theory. And he said, okay, give me your theory. I said, the theory is that Eleanor is in on it. And he said, okay, I'll file that one away. And then...
That's the mother?
That's the mother, yeah. That's Kate's mom. And that Jack is a red herring. And that... and then I had the other one in my back pocket. I've had it since the beginning of... Even when they announced it. When they announced that Echo was in it, I kind of knew from my comics reading where they might be going with it. And I was praying that that's where they're going with it. And they went where they thought I was going, or I thought they were going, and it's fantastic.
You're talking about the D'Onofrio character?
Well, we'll just start by saying spoilers. Ignore what Tim just said, spoilers, and now we'll go forward. So today, while we're recording, is the day that Spider-Man No Way Home is debuting in theaters here in North America.
Right.
It's also the same, it's one day after the episode of Hawkeye season 1, episode 5 dropped. The final scene of this one is the revelation that the big bad that Clint has been fearing would get involved in this the whole time is the Kingpin of Crime, who, of course, was played by Vincent D'Onofrio in an absolutely amazing performance in the Daredevil and in the Netflix Marvel content. And we talked last week about how Charlie Cox was going to come back.
Does that mean I have to go watch Defenders now?
Yeah, you probably should. You probably should watch the whole damn thing. But Daredevil in particular, Daredevil is, to me, season 1 of Jessica Jones is amazing. It's probably my favorite of all the things that I've seen so far. And I must admit, I haven't watched the last 2 or 3 things. But the Daredevil one by far is my favorite. It just such a pitch perfect capturing of why I liked that book for my entire life. And I've been reading Daredevil for 41 years.
So I can forget about the Ben Affleck portrayal?
Yeah, I think that's safe to say, yeah. But I was really hopeful when they mentioned Charlie Cox coming back and verifying it with Kevin Feige last week that
you mentioned
that would open the door to that whole Netflix universe making a return in some fashion. Whether or not that was going to be some multiversal thing, whether or not that was going to be, actually rooted in the MCU proper that we're aware of, and to get the confirmation that Charlie's coming back as Daredevil, possibly in No Way Home, and now to get the confirmation that Wilson Fisk, Kingpin of Crime, and the big bad from that Netflix stuff is now part of the MCU proper is just so thrilling, and I just cannot wait to see how this continues to play out. It does spin into the Echo series they've already announced, because Echo in the comics, not to spoil too much for you guys, but is a character who starts out bad and starts to turn good. So there you go. I think you guys could put 2 and 2 together on that one pretty fast anyways. But so they've sort of set the stage in this episode for where the Echo series will go. And logically,
which one's Echo now?
Echo is the Alakwa Cox character. She's the martial artist, the the indigenous
hearing impaired.
Yes.
Yeah, with the prosthetic. Yeah.
Yep. So
last week I asked you, because I had that sort of funny feeling about Eleanor, the mother, because, and it's awfully quick that she, had him hauled away, right? Yeah.
And calmly so. She's not like distraught or anything, just like taking out the trash.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Jack is undoubtedly a sketchy dude. There's no mistaking it. And again, Jack is a character who has existed in comics for about 50 years. There's plenty of more Jack to come. He is not...
oh, you mean this character is not new to this show? He's been around for a bit.
For a long, long time. For longer than I've been alive.
All right.
So, there's definitely more than meets the eye with him, but he, to me, has always been the red herring, right? You're supposed to suspect him because of the swords and the sword implicated in the death, but you're supposed to forget that in the very first episode, we had the heated exchange between Eleanor's mom and the man who ended up dead, right?
Right.
So from that, you're supposed to basically figure out that, if anybody had a reason to see that person killed, it wasn't necessarily Jack who said, eventually I'll get the money. You're supposed to think that's him implying that he'll have this guy killed, his uncle. But we also are supposed to conveniently forget that Eleanor, the poor grieving widow, just had this heated conversation where, sounded an awful lot like he was threatening her to expose her, right, for something.
Well, I was going to say, so now, because you just planted an interesting seed in my head, and that is that when Eleanor says to Kate, does he think you're a superhero, right?
Yeah.
Well, if your mother or father was a superhero and had powers or something, right, then you would naturally inherit that, right? So maybe she was trying to dig whether Clint thought that Eleanor was a suspect, right?
Yeah, I think she was trying to sort of gauge what Clint knows, right? Yeah. But
because clearly she knows that Kate hasn't got these powers just because she's good at archery, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're going. I don't think that's where it's going.
Okay.
Just given, I'll extrapolate from my reading materials that I don't think that's where it's going. That being said, in the comics, Eleanor is not a villain, so they can certainly make twists and turns as much as they want. The other thing,
I don't mean that she's a villain. I just mean that she's a little bit more capable than your average,
Oh, I mean, she's clearly again, and you don't like. I love Vera Farmiga. I think she's a fantastic actress. You don't cast her if she's not going to be like having some very important scenes, and so far she's been kind of set dressing. She's been kind of this quasi paternal, quasi sabotaging element for Kate. She hasn't really had a lot of meat to chew on. You got to think that's going to end next week.
Okay.
But I think it will be interesting to see how they land this plane. There is still a bunch of stuff to do. They have to bring together the Yelena stuff. And speaking of freaking amazing performances, that scene between Yelena and Kate was so good. Oh my God, that was so good.
That's why I wrote down here, I made some awesome mac and cheese. I mean, that's like, I love the way that Natasha did the same thing, where she the very first time we see her, I think it was probably in Hulk or something like that, or maybe Iron Man, Iron
Man 2.
Yeah, where she's in the chair and she's getting beaten up and whatever. And then,
that's in Avengers. That's the first Avengers movie. Yeah.
Right, and her cell phone rings and she goes, "Hang on, I'm kind of busy right now."
Yeah.
And then she just turns on the room and basically, knocks everybody out, right?
Because it's Coulson, right? Coulson's calling saying we got to bring you in, right?
Yeah, and then the same sort of thing with the Florence Pugh character today, Yelena. She very casually just sort of has a sit down and makes dinner for Kate, with the mac and cheese.
Yeah.
And just has a conversation. Hey, tell me, I'm new in New York. What are the sites I want to go visit?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, she's like the most dangerous person in the room.
Oh yeah, in the city, arguably.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting too, because I think we're supposed to think when she shows up that it is spinning right out of the end of the teaser scene from Black Widow, where Valentina d'Allegra de la Fontaine is the Countess is basically given her this scapegoat for her death, trying to basically eliminate a threat. But then we get that twisted in this episode as we get the reveal that the person that hired her is not in fact.
So the Countess, is that the rich Black Widow?
No, the Countess is the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character that has popped up.
Her.
She popped up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. She popped up at the end of Black Widow. We're supposed to figure out what it is she's got brewing there. It seems an awful lot like she's building a series of, let's call them the Dark Avengers.
Yeah, because she's got John Walker's TS agents.
Not TS agent. Not TS agent. That's a different thing.
TS agent. Or US agent.
US agent.
Comic fans.
But I do like TS agent so much more. Man, sometimes I'd rather fight John Walker than go through the TSA. Anyways.
Yeah, for sure. I love the way they portrayed the blip for
that was
Elena's
fantastic.
character.
What a great effect
cool.
that was. That was so good.
Like, as soon as I saw her disintegrate, spoilers for people. Well, we were in spoiler territory.
We were in Spoilerville.
As soon as she started disintegrating, and then like a second later, she's back. Yeah,
and it's 5 years later.
For her, it was
instantaneous.
For her, it was 5 seconds, and for the woman she was visiting, she was in the bathroom at this woman's house, and she comes out 5 years later. That was the effect that they did, where she's like looking into the mirror and she's like washing her hands, and then her hands, the water starts going through her hands. She turns to dust, and then regrows into a person again. That was so excellently done, because we really haven't seen the blip back, right? We haven't really seen people. We got a little bit of it in Spider-Man. They showed a few people just like showing up and stuff like that, but the effect in this, the way they did that, was fantastic.
We saw in WandaVision, we saw
Monica,
we saw Monica come back, but we saw it kind of more of like almost like an outsider, right? Like an outsider's perspective of like this person undusting back into a person. Whereas here in Yelena's case, it almost, because the way the background kind of undusts itself back in at the same time she does, it made it feel like that was her perspective. It was like, again, like you said, instantaneous, like what the hell? What just happened here? Why
the bathroom wall color changed, right?
Yeah, it's like why is this different? Like, I was just washing my face, right? Yeah. That was kind of an interesting the CGI trick that I think was well worth it, because it is so freaking cool.
Well, so for Monica too, when she came back, she was disoriented. Like, she was like, what? Like, like, as somebody who's had, head injuries for various reasons, I know that when you come back to consciousness, you're not always, really sure where you are, right? Whereas Yelena, other than the wall color changes, for her, it seemed like no time and no thought, other than the split second where she was dusting, that nothing really sort of changed for her. And then the only thing that changed for her was when she came back out, the room was changed, and the lady had a kid and a husband, and that kind of stuff, right? So so it's interesting how they're gonna play that out, But I guess hopefully Feige's got some sort of continuity going there with all these various threads, right? So I hope so. Like I said, Asimov and those kind of guys who used to write these big giant universes worth of stories would have like
the Bible,
everything sort of they'd have like like the serial killer hunter wall with all of the 8x10s and the lines and the maps and
I bet you there are a team of people who work for Feige who essentially their job is continuity. That's what they do, is to say, no, you can't do that, or if you want to do that, we have to write this out, or you have to figure out all these different angles, because it must be so, especially as you're going through, not just the movies now, but TV shows and everything else, it must get incredibly challenging.
So speaking of continuity, just an aside here, sidebar. So I was watching one of the episodes of Graham Norton, and some actor, I forget who it was like somebody like Chris Pratt or whatever, a fly ended up in his beer, right? And so like, they pick up another actor on the couch picks it up and fishes the fly out of the beer, right? And puts it, like, throws it on the carpet, and it survived, right? It's like the camera zooms in on it, and it's still lying on the floor, twitching its legs, right? And they're joking about, how, like, he's, he's got to continue with the story. And one of the comedians on the bench puts the cup back in front of him and says, for continuity, we have to have this here, right? I mean, they didn't cut the fly scene out of the whole show, but it was kind of funny that, that they implied that they would. And then, of course, he'd have to drink out of the beer that had the fly in it a minute ago. And it wasn't so much the fly that bothered him, but the other actor's finger was in his beer, right?
I'm going to put this one into the show notes. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but have you seen the Tom Hiddleston dancing clip from the UK?
No. No.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I
when
have,
you
I don't
guys get a chance, and you audience at home get a chance, we'll put it into the show notes. It is Tom Hiddleston dancing from a couple years back on something called The Chatty Show in the UK. And they're like, oh, we hear you're a good dancer. Can you show us? And he gets up, and he is phenomenal. He's such a good dancer. I was like, okay, I already thought he was like super cool. This dude is just like, honestly, I was thinking about this, and my son and I were talking about it, like, who do you think would be a good next James Bond? I'm like, God, it's got to be Tom Hiddleston, doesn't it? He's just the coolest guy on the planet.
Right. And he's got that swagger, right?
He does, and he's got that sort of roguish charm that you kind of like. He's nailed it with Loki. He certainly would. He would have to do a little bit of weight training because he's a little more slight than you, I think, imagine Bond being. But I don't think that should take him off the table. And maybe he's just too known now as Loki. But damn, he would be a great James Bond.
Well, I mean, like who's before Daniel Craig?
Pierce Brosnan.
What was his name? Yeah, he was too well known. I mean, like he was
Remington Steele.
Remington Steele. Like he was very well known as somebody, as another character.
Yeah.
You know, but
I mean, look at Tom Holland, right? Tom Holland is Spider-Man, and he's gonna be Nathan Drake, right?
Well, that remains to be seen.
Well, we know he's going to be that. Whether or not he's good at being that's a different thing.
Well, the question about Uncharted is like, I wonder how the world would accept that character, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they really haven't warmed up to Lara Croft very much, right? So.
Yeah. Fair.
Anyway.
All right. Should we move on to the watch list?
Yeah, let's do the watch list thing. Oh, look, it's me again. So last week we talked about The Matrix being in IMAX, and I did I've been following the story as after I saw it. It has been rezzed up to 4K, which is why it is freaking amazing on IMAX. Now, I gotta say, I don't remember when we saw Dune if we saw a IMAX cut of is it No Way Home? What's the new Spider-Man?
Oh, the trailer. Yeah. Far From Home. Yeah, No Way Home is the new one.
No Way Home. And so, but was it like in the full aspect ratio of IMAX?
I cannot recall. I want to say yes.
So before this one, because I went to see it at the Scotiabank Theater, which is a proper IMAX, like, you know, ratio,
huge,
square, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I saw Gravity there. So I saw Alien. The original Alien movie was cut for IMAX on that one. I've seen a number of movies there, so it's probably my favorite IMAX theater. And so this was I basically tried to ping a few people. Nobody wanted to go, so I just screw it and went and saw it by myself. And I have seen this movie a number of times, right? And had the DVD, and it's when it's on, I sit and watch it for a few minutes and flip away and stuff like that. So I hadn't really sort of sat down and watched it from end to end in a long time, but I've seen all of the bits 1,000 times, right? So I bought the ticket and I thought, do I really want to see this? Can I live without it? And I thought, what the hell, I'll just go, right? So I bought a ticket, went and saw it, and was able to select a seat. So I was like, not near people, sat in the middle of the theater, good seat. I was in the top row of the theater, and there was enough distance between me and other people, which was great, like from that point of view. But this cut is so crystal clear that it is like amazing to watch. Like, Lawrence Fishburne has a really pockmarked face, and the Oracle has all kinds of interesting things happening on her face, and even Neo and Trinity at their they were sort of at their prime in terms of their looks, right? And plus all the the leather and the black and the latex and the guns and everything like that, and the effects of the the CRT tubes kind of thing as the camera moves in and out of the Matrix, as it were. It's just an amazing movie to watch. And of course, I've seen all the sort of making ofs and theories ofs and all that kind of stuff. Like, the fact that, the green tint means you're in the Matrix and the blue tint means you're in the real world, in the overall thing, and I was amazed. I was amazed that this movie actually stood up. What was funny for me, though, was that, and I kind of wonder how other people feel about this. I mean, I grew up with rotary phones and phones where you had to, stand there and take, phone booths. You wanted to call somebody, you had to go to a phone booth and call somebody. And, and the early cell phones and stuff like that. And, with clearly saying Nokia right on it, or even the I don't know if you remember the 4-color Bic pen with the 4 4 colors.
yeah,
like
yeah.
when they hand Neo the thing to sign for the phone, he's got one of those pens in his hand, and he actually pushes down on the blue ink to sign. And he could have chosen the red, but he chose the blue, kind of thing, right? And all that sort of the special effects, it actually held up really, really well. But it's funny because it's got a sort of steampunk feel to it now, because when the rigs and whatever that they've made, that these people have made to work to manipulate the Matrix, when they're in the Matrix manipulating it, they've got all these sort of contrived devices that they've made. Like they have a dialer that dials an old 50s style rotary phone, right? And you may not have noticed that kind of stuff in so much in the 90s, because we still had those kind of phones, but now it's kind of funny because it's kind of like putting a record on a vinyl record on a phonograph. It's something so retro that the movie actually held up pretty well, and I all the way through. I mean, even right to the very last, Rage Against the Machine singing "Wake Up," it was really worthwhile seeing. And so we talked about it last week that it was only supposed to be in the theater for 2 days, right? And it wasn't the days that we looked at. I went on. It was on Saturday and Sunday. I could have seen it a couple of times if I wanted, and I was so dumb. I should have gone to see the James Bond movie while I was there, but wasn't that smart. But I've noticed that if you look on the schedules for a few theaters around Toronto today, you can go see The Matrix. You can see the 1999 cut of The Matrix, this rezzed up 4K version, right? So it's not like it's unobtainium. And it makes sense, because people are going to want to, if people are going to go to the theater to see Resurrections, they may want to see the original movie, before or after, just for the sake of that connection. I wonder in the Resurrections if they'll go back to that trough with, and try to emulate the old tech that was in there, right? Because, I talked earlier about the bullet time thing. I don't know if you guys know, like when the very first scene where Trinity jumps into the air and the camera pans around her as she's frozen in space, right?
Yep.
I don't know if you guys know how they did that, but they had a ring of cameras all the way around her, and as she leapt up, they were doing wire work, but as she leapt up, they snap, all the cameras take a picture, and then when they take each one of those individual pictures and put it into the film, so you watch it as if it's a film loop, right? And that's how they achieved that effect. And it was early CGI stuff that they did with Neo, with the dodging the bullets and stuff like that with the helicopter scene and all that kind of stuff. It surprisingly really held up really well. So
cool.
And people laughed when Neo said, "Whoa!" Right?
It's become such an iconic, weird thing that he does. So
the story behind it is that for me, anyway, was I used to go see movies every Friday night with my friend, and we went to a movie, and we were walking out of the movie, and somebody handed us a card saying, "What is The Matrix?" I wish I kept the card, but and we kind of looked at this, and it was like a preview of next Thursday come to the special screening of this movie. Anyway, so we went and saw the Friday of that week, the next week, and the scene where and it was before Columbine. Now I think about it, but the scene where Neo and Trinity go into the Matrix. Spoilers for you if you haven't seen it, but and they get all the guns. He says, "Well, I need guns, lots of guns, right?" And they go they walk through the metal detector, and of course they trip it because he's like loaded with metal, right? And they start shooting up the security guards on the first floor of the building when they go to rescue Morpheus, right? As this amazing, track and the shooting and the wire work and all that kind of stuff, and the marble getting crumbled off the walls and stuff like that. And at the very end of it, all you hear is like one of the pieces of marble fall off, and like it's complete pitch quiet. And I remember the crowd in the theater just erupting in applause after seeing that for the very first time. I mean, admittedly, right? So if you've seen it 1,000 times, you've seen it 1,000 times. But it was just sort of like it was the first time over the top sort of like gunfight, in a movie.
Well, and it was just really, so the way that they depicted the damage that was happening around them was so unconventional. There was certainly, there were explosions and squibs and stuff like that long before this, but the level of detail that they put into that was, there are very few moments when you're in a movie theater, and I'm sure for you, Tim, in 77, Star Wars was like this. There are certainly movie moments where you walk in, you're like, whoa, I just saw something take a huge step forward. That was one of them. Watching that movie, the bullet time, the effects that they were using, I remember thinking like, oh, movies just took a huge step forward.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a moon landing, exactly.
Yeah, it is. It's genuinely revolutionary in that it was so imitated from there on out, right?
Speaking of moon landings, my second pick is Capricorn 1. I watched it a couple of nights ago, and I've been avoiding... I saw this movie back in like probably the late 70s, or 70s sometime, I remember. And I remember this general bits about the story, but I hadn't really watched it. And again, it's from 1978. It's Peter Hymas, who is pretty well known, did some pretty seminal movies as well. But the gist behind this one, and the reason why I have been avoiding it in general, is that it's about a faked landing on Mars, right? But and without giving too much away, because you can see this in the trailer, which I've got a link here. The astronauts are on the ship, on the rocket. It's about to take off. It looks just like an Apollo mission. They're all ready to go. Their astronaut outfits are a little hokey, but we'll let that slide because it was 78. And they're in the ship, and with 5 minutes left on the countdown, somebody comes and everybody's left, like they lock them in, they strap them all in, and they all run away while the rocket, gets fired off. But 5 minutes to go on the countdown, somebody comes and opens the door and says, "Gentlemen, come with me now." And they kind of like, "What the hell are you doing?" And they get off the ship, they get put in a bus, they get taken over to a small Learjet, and they get flown away to a abandoned warehouse somewhere. And then they're told by Hal Holbrook. It's interesting. It's James Brolin, O.J. Simpson, who actually does not do a very bad job of acting. He's pretty good in it. Yeah. And Sam Waterston
from
Waterston, and he's hilarious in this movie, right?
Yeah.
So Hal Holbrook walks in the room, and Waterston looks and says, "Funny thing happened on the way to Mars."
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so they find out, Holbrook tells them at the beginning that, they kind of cut the budget on, they go in, of course, government funding, they went to the cheapest people. The people that made the life support system screwed the pooch. They would have been dead in 3 days if they let them go to Mars, right? Mm-hmm. So the rocket blasts off, and then it's meant to it's like an 8-month mission, and it comes back, and they're supposed to splash down and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so they're stuck in, and they're basically told that they have to go and pretend that they're on Mars, and they use video effects and stuff like that to make them look to fake the actual the walking on Mars and all that kind of stuff. But in general, the reason why I'm encouraging people to watch this movie is not so much about the whole, because it actually does have an interesting story, but it's sort of a very 70s 80s kind of movie in that there's a lot of flaws in the story, but it's compelling enough that you should watch it, because it turns into an investigative reportive story, right? Because Elliot Gould, who plays the cub reporter who uncovers this thing, a friend of his, is one of the techs at NASA who disappears in the middle of the movie for unknown reasons and that kind of stuff. So he's sort of given the task of going and finding out what's going on, and of course nobody believes him, right? Yep. And even his editor doesn't believe him, and the editor and him, they have this banter back and forth about tropes from reporters in movies and stuff like that, and at one point the editor says, "I saw that movie too, and it wasn't four things, it was 3 things," and whatever. But it holds up well. It's in the same sort of style as Planet of the Apes, like in that sort of 70s 80s kind of sci-fi thing. The acting is really good in it, and a bit 70s in terms of plausibility, but plot points and stuff like that. But it's on Amazon Prime, and it's high quality. Like they must have done a really good restoration of it or something. But I was actually surprised how good the movie was.
Cool.
So recommend, if you get a minute, watch it. It's only like 90 minutes long or something like that, right?
I'm gonna put that one on my Christmas break watch along with the rest of the Marvel Netflix stuff I never finished.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna give away. I haven't given away much of the story. I've only given away a couple of points. So yeah, but anyway, you have to watch it to figure out what the resolution is. And the last one is this. I posted this yesterday because yesterday was the release of the brand new made for the 50th anniversary of All Things Must Pass, which is George Harrison's first solo album. This is the video for My Sweet Lord, and it stars Fred Armisen and Mark Hamill. and a cast of like, well-known celebrities, including, Olivia Harrison and Danny Harrison and a few other, Jeff Lynne, and Melissa Bayer and Fred Armisen do this. They have this sort of investigative, silent. It's almost like a silent movie. Like the song "My Sweet Lord" is playing while these guys are running around California trying to solve some sort of something or other. Right. Interesting way to do a music video, if you will. Right. So, but if you're a George Harrison fan and you're a fan of those kind of guys, the Saturday Night Live crew, check it out. It's pretty funny. Cool. And it's funny because I don't know if you know, Fred Armisen is a drummer.
Yeah, and a good one.
At one point, Ringo is showing him how to play drums. That's my pick for the watch list.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Over to you, Jaime.
Yeah, mine is for the Star Trek Lower Decks fans. So if you have around $80 US to spend on a pretty nifty model, Eagle Moss has the USS Cerritos as a 3D actual thing you can have on your desk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a bunch of Star Trek and Star Wars things.
Yeah, they got a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, they've got all the hero ships, so this ends up adding onto there, and then variations like you can get the what are they called? The Dreadnought Galaxy class Enterprise D from the All Good Things timeline, and a whole bunch of other stuff too. So
looking at this here, they've got Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Stargate, Space 1999, The Expanse, Orville, Dorville, Marvel, Fallout, a bunch of stuff. Beatles even, Doctor Who.
I have a couple things. So I finished watching Big Mouth season 5. It was hilarious, as is to be expected. I do give it a high recommendation if you haven't dived into Big Mouth. It is consistently pushes the envelope to places that you just never expect it to, and it is consistently incredibly laugh out loud funny. But the reason I wanted to bring it up, particularly this week, is to say not only should you enjoy the season, but the 8th episode of this 10-episode season is the Big Mouth holiday special, Christmas special. And they do a mix of both puppetry as well as animation, and sort of do the sort of trope of Christmas specials where they sort of do these little 5-minute mini stories, and then the interludes are done by puppet versions of the main characters, and the puppet versions are amazing. They are so well done. I want one of those, and the stuffed versions of those. They are so well done, and the episode is gut-bustingly funny. So if you're looking for a little extra holiday content this time of year, it is an excellent way to sort of dive in a little bit to the world of Big Mouth, to jump in right at the holiday special there, because it is pretty spectacular in its vision of the holidays, and definitely pushes the envelope. Not for kids, extremely not for kids.
Yeah.
Do not show this to a child.
Yeah, I watched the first episode, and I was actually surprised by the.
Oh no! It is
the monster.
Very, very much for at the very minimum, I would say teenagers and up. It is, and
maybe a bit older than that too.
Yeah, you know what though? It's such a smartly written show. Like they do certainly push boundaries. It is certainly absolutely done for humorous effect, but they will teach you a lot of stuff if you are somebody who does not know about sex. And there's stuff in there that, like, again, I'm a cis male middle-aged man. There's stuff that I don't know about, and it has taught me some stuff. So it's got to be the same thing for a younger audience. So I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I remember.
Well, considering I learned all this stuff from walking home with kids in school, and well,
Jesus, I hope you didn't learn all that stuff, because they go some places that I didn't know existed. So, But I remember when I was a little kid, I remember watching an interview with Stan Lee when I couldn't have been like 10 or 12 years old, watching an interview on TV with Stan Lee, and they said, they were talking about. At that point, it was when they were starting to develop the comics just aren't just for kids sort of mentality of like, there's lots of things in comics for everybody. And he said, I've never shied away from using a big word. I've never shied away from using, complex situations, because I want a kid to have to go to their parents and ask about something and learn something. And I want them to go to the dictionary and look up a word that I used, because I think that's how they're going to learn. And that is kind of the same approach that I see in the writing of Big Mouth. Like, yeah, sometimes they are going some places and you're like, whoa, I cannot believe they went to that place, but they're teaching you some stuff as you go.
Cool.
And the last thing I've got in here is, I guess, for our it's a recommendation / a cautionary tale. So Spider-Man No Way Home and is coming out today as we're recording. So by the time you hear this, it will have been out for a little bit. And The Matrix Resurrections is scheduled to hit theaters next week. However, speaking of hitting, the Omicron variant of the coronavirus is hitting quite hard in a lot of places. Here in Ontario, where Tim and I live, they have announced a few clawbacks on some of the freedoms that we've been able to re-enjoy. One of which is that they are reducing capacity inside of events. You're not allowed to have, you're only allowed to have 50% capacity at concert venues, sporting events, things like that. And I believe movie theaters are involved in that as well, because they don't count it by theater, they count it by occupancy of the whole place. So it's anything over 1,000 seats, and movie theaters generally qualify as that. So if you happen to have tickets to go see that for Thursday and Friday here, you will be fine. After that, they're going to have to figure out how they're going to not let people go to the theater for some of these shows, because they're going to only allow 50% capacity. I have a weekly meeting. So for those that are not necessarily in the know, I work for a major healthcare organization here in Canada. That is my day job, and I'm lucky enough to spend an hour every week in conversation with an epidemiologist who works on our staff, and she is brilliant, and she shares her insights in a very unfiltered and somewhat terrifying way. And I said to her, before we get into all of the numbers and everything else, I just want to ask you one question. Are you going to go see Spider-Man No Way Home in the theater? And she said, no, I am not. And I thought, well, wow. I think that pretty much seals it for me too. And I'm heartbroken because I desperately want to see this movie. It is the movie I've been looking forward to the most. And she said, no, this variant is spreading so quickly, and we don't know enough about its effects on everybody. We do know that it is definitely, it is breaking through people's vaccinations. And she said she does not feel confident that she would spend time in a movie theater that was full to go see it. So I will leave it again to everyone's discretion. We will note for the record that our good friend and co-host, Jaime Lopez Jr., has not seen a movie in how long, Jaime?
In theaters?
Yeah.
I haven't gone to any since the pandemic started. So
March.
So almost 2 years.
March. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I went to anything in January or February, but let's just pretend it was March of 2020 when it starts. Just make it easy.
So there's certainly people who have made the choice, and given their the level of transmissibility in their community and everything else, made the decision that that's not for them, and that is to be fully respected. I am really curious, given the really, really rapidly increasing rates of transmission in a lot of major areas in the world, not the least of which are Canada and the United States. I wonder if we will see any movement on the decision to go with the 45-day waiting period. Theoretically, if it's 45 days from release, that means we would be seeing Spider-Man at the end of January, early February on Disney Plus.
It won't be like a home premiere.
They have already said once they hit the fall, they basically said no, that is not their intention. They do not intend to do any same day and date releases on Disney Plus and in the theater. They're only doing in the theater. So I will just say, use your discretion, decide whether or not this is for you. I have it on good authority by somebody who is a genuine medical expert and not a fluffy, podcast host, some jackass on the internet, some jackass on a podcast. This is genuinely from a medical expert. She has told me that she doesn't feel like this is a good idea, and I'm going to listen to her advice, even though it genuinely pains me to do so, and I really really hate the idea of not only having to wait this long to have seen this movie, but now to have to wait another 2 months at least. It sucks, but I think the attitude that all of us need to take over this next little stretch is better to be safe than sorry. And so that is how I am approaching those two things. Again, I consider it very lucky that we were able to get out and see Dune. We were able to get out and see Eternals. We were able to get out and see, what else did we see? We saw
Matrix.
Oh, you saw The Matrix. Yeah, we've been able to get out and see a couple things this fall, which is nice. And I think that was nice to have that option on the table. And I didn't feel unsafe in those moments. But I think now is the moment where we have to, listen to medical experts. We have to take the best advice available to us. All of the experts in our area are saying it is starting to get a little bit scary out there, that there's a lot of transmission, and that being vaccinated is not necessarily a guarantee against getting ill or carrying it or transmitting it onto people that you love. So bear that in mind. And yeah, sometimes it's going to cost you. If the only thing it costs you is the ability to see Spider-Man in the theater, then you are getting off extremely light. And same thing with The Matrix. And yeah, it's going to suck. And I hope that at some point down the road, I'll be able to see those in the theater, because I'm sure they're big theater movies, but I just don't see December 2021 being the time to do that. So that is my decision. You can make your own decision. Everybody's entitled to their own decisions, but it is it's definitely something to think hard about.
Yeah, I mean, and as as much as I can say, it was really cool to see The Matrix in the theater. When I did the math on what it cost me, it was not a cheap event, right? $20 for the ticket, and I had to pay $16 for parking, and then because I am not taking transit, and then you grab a snack, and you're into it $40-$50, so it's not a cheap thing to do. So sitting at home and watching a movie for $30 all of a sudden makes a lot of sense, right?
Well, and particularly in my circumstance, because generally, my son comes along, and so that's a double, right off the hop. Usually, you and I are pretty good at exchanging. Although I did say my son started working full time this last little stretch. He's taking a gap year after finishing high school and pocketing some money. And I was like, yeah, I guess who's getting in on the paying for the movies turn along with Tim and I? I think maybe you should be throwing in for some of these things, because so far it's been a two-man show as opposed to a three-man show. So I said, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for you to pony up for one of these movies one of these days. He's like, but that's my money. I like spending your money. I'm like, yeah, I know you do.
Yeah. I didn't get to spend my parents' money.
Yeah. Well, it's good for kids to learn these things over time, right?
Yeah.
Self-sufficiency, charity, kindness to others, paying your share, equality. Those are all good things you're supposed to teach kids, right?
Buying around, basically.
That's buying around. You got it. So, yeah. Jaime, did you, just out of curiosity, I mean, obviously you've definitely taken a stance against going to the movie theater. Did you have any intention of seeing these, or were you always writing this out?
I was thinking I would probably not see these unless I could lunk into that Shang-Chi situation you all had, where you were like the only two people in the private movie theater that wasn't actually technically rented privately, so it was a lot cheaper.
Yeah, and I guess that's the other thing that has sort of been on my mind. Like, we deliberately didn't buy tickets for sort of opening stretch because it was going to be packed and it was going to be busy, and I think we were always sort of going to take a more cautious approach. If for some reason this is still, playing in theaters in January or later, and circumstances of the pandemic change, yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Tim, but I'm down for a 10:30 show where there's three of us in the theater again. That was
for sure.
An amazing experience. But I can't say that, and to be fair, I want to point out here in Ontario, Cineplex has done a good job. They are following all the parameters. They do require you to show proof of vaccination on your way in. But as we've said, the current strains that are going around do not care whether you've been vaccinated or not. To an extent, I think the number right now is about 70% protection. If you're double vaccinated, that's certainly a huge step forward, and hopefully it will reduce your illness if you do happen to contract COVID. But the chances of you contracting it and being able to transmit it to others and potentially get ill, it still remains high. 30% is it's a lot, epidemiologically speaking. So, you have to factor all those things in together. And for me, it's just
we have some pretty fragile family members too. So that's another.
Well, that's it, right? Like, do you really want to put people at risk? Because you want to see Spidey? Like, again, do not get me wrong. I am heartbroken over this. I love Spider-Man. It's one of my all-time favorite characters. I love these movies. I love this portrayal. I want to know what happens. I am envious. I saw a few of my friends who did wade in and go today, and I hope that everything is good with them. But yeah, it's a scary world we're living in right now, and you gotta do you, and it's a scary thing. A scary thing.
So, just for the sake of science, the Canadian premiere of Matrix Revolutions is tonight, actually.
It was. I had a friend who went, yeah.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves is in town for that, and walking the black carpet.
Yeah.
But they announced that it's going to be on, it's going to be in theaters on the 29th, but it's also going to be on HBO Max or Plus, or whatever it's called, Jaime? Does that mean
HBO
that
Max.
you'd be able to watch it like at home? Like, is it like a home premiere deal? Or?
Yeah, because it was a Warner Brothers film. So all of 2021's slate for Warner Brothers has been at least on HBO Max. Sometimes I think day of.
So that mean you pay like $30 to see it or something? Or
no, it's the tier you need is the Max, which is I can look it up. It's like $14.99 or $19.99 a month. I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, so it's not. Yeah, it's like a movie ticket or whatever.
No, but it's factored into the cost.
Yeah, so
no,
like,
I know
get
that's what I'm saying, but you're not paying specifically like Disney does the premieres too. But if you want to watch like Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, no, but they're not even doing that model with HBO Max. It's just included in the cost, so there's no extra cost on top. Like for the Black Widow and that, you had to pay an extra $35 here in Canada. For HBO, you just get it as part of your subscription, which is, as I said in a previous episode, what a steal that's worked out to be this year. I may be able to watch it long before we will, if we're not going to the theater.
You do have to watch, like, I can't remember if it's like a 3-week or 4-week time period. So they do something weird where, like, the first one I think that came up on this was Wonder Woman 1984, if I'm not mistaken. And so you had, I don't know, it came out like second week of January, I think, and you had until like middle of February to see it. And then it went away for some undetermined, or I should say, I do not recall the number of months it went away. So you literally couldn't watch it anymore if you didn't see in that time period until I want to say like 3 months later. It's like, okay, now it's just part of the lineup for HBO.
Yep.
So you can watch it, indefinitely now. So I assume they'll do the same thing for this, where it'll be in their catalog for about a month. And then, you missed out. Sucks to be you. You're going to have to wait a few months until it comes back as like a regular movie as part of their lineup.
Yeah. And in spite of Jaime's teasing us for our subsidized sci-fi here in Canada, there won't be that option. The last few times this has happened, it was theater or nothing. Those are your choices here in Canada, which is unfortunate. Again, if they put it on the table tomorrow, if they said $35 you can watch Spider-Man, they would have my $35. But that's not on the table, and it's unfortunate that and we talked about this, I think the real challenge is obviously the spoilers, and it just seems unfathomable that you'll be able to make it until January, February, or whenever it appears on Disney Plus, or whenever it's available to a Canadian audience without being spoiled. I just cannot imagine a world where that happens. And that's disappointing because, again, take my money. I will pay. But no, it's not on the table.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jaime, people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithTheHair.
All right. And Jonathan, people want to get in touch with you?
Coincidentally, I'm also on Twitter as DevWithTheHair, so I don't know how that worked out.
No, you're Dev without
the hair. That's me. Actually, oh god, that would be funny. No, I'm on Twitter and Instagram as @JPK News.
All right, and my name is Timitra. I'm TIMMITRA on the Twitter machines, where you'll find me. And so until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
By the way, you were mentioning on, I think it was on last week's episode, Jonathan, that there was a time when would you subscribe to a channel? I think we were talking about Paramount Plus. Mm-hmm. Would you subscribe to a channel if it had a particular show that you wanted to watch or whatever? Mm-hmm. And I remember, for the longest time, we still can't get Hulu in Canada, right?
Well, we get Star, which is kind of Hulu.
Well, yeah, but we didn't for the longest time. Oh, yeah. And I remember there used to be shows on Hulu that I just kind of went, oh, it's on Hulu, too bad, yep. And just for years not being able to. I remember Alec Baldwin for some reason promoting Hulu when it first came out, but I just remember for 10 years or whatever it's been out that there were just shows on Hulu that okay, I guess they're on Hulu.
Yeah,
and you had to wait for them to come out on DVD or Blu-ray or rental or something,
Yep.
to be able to see them. And those days are coming back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Big sale this week. I sent you a link to a couple things. Big sale on Apple on the iTunes store this week here in Canada. They're starting to do the sort of pre-Christmas Boxing Day kind of sales. Deep Space Nine, the entire series on iTunes for $30 Canadian as a pretty good deal. It's like 170. It works out to pennies on the episode. It's pretty good. But they also put out you can get the complete series.
But are they still in the low resi sort of format? They haven't been resed up or whatever.
No,
right?
They didn't do a full I haven't done a full turnaround on that one. I think they did do one for TNG and the original series, but I don't think they've done it for Deep Space Nine. But yeah, there's some really good deals like Mad Men, the entire series of Mad Men on iTunes Store, which is HD for $20. It's great. Weeds. Wow. News Radio. There's one for you. The complete series, Charlie's Angels, Bewitched. Oh, Real Ghostbusters. There you go. They have a whole bunch of stuff on sale this week. Some really good stuff on here. Sherlock.
I never saw West Wing.
Oh my God, watch West Wing. That's that is one of my all-time favorite shows. So good, so good.
The Complete Voyager.
Enterprise is $25 for the entire series. Original series of Star Trek is $25. Discovery seasons 1, 2, and 3 for $10 a season. You want to have those in your pocket. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots of cool stuff out here this week. The Jetsons, the complete Flintstones. I'm not sure how they worked out the pricing. There's the same number of episodes of Voyager as there are of DS9, but it's $15 more for Voyager. Can someone please let me know what the rationale there is, please?
The Voyager actually goes places, whereas DS9 stays in the same place.
They get a ship eventually.
Yeah, because they can't stand being in the same place.
Jaime, what's a better series, Voyager or DS9?
I think DS9 has. It's kind of weird because the winner's. The short of it is that winner's going to be DS9 in my opinion, but I can see why people like Voyager, and as a comparison for people who grew up in that time, and I'm going to talk about sort of the modern renaissance around Voyager in particular. So I think that Deep Space Nine has really high highs. It also has some really weird lows.
Yeah.
So it's kind of streaky and uneven in episodes, whereas Voyager is sort of vanilla, it's sort of straight, right? It doesn't get the highs that you're going to get out of DS9, but it doesn't get the lows for the most part, if you put it on a scatter plot and you got to throw off the threshold episode, right?
Yep.
So you do the best fit line. It's it's mostly in this range, and that's for people who saw both live when they came out. It feels like now that we've been a few decades away from Voyager being on the air, there's been a weird renaissance, and I don't know if it's the youngins, I don't know if it's nostalgia factor or something, but I think it's the same kind of thing where you see the prequels for Star Wars getting more love now than they did, when they came out. And I feel it's like a rose-colored glasses sort of thing. So, suddenly everybody is like, "Oh my God, Icheb was my favorite character in the show."
Come on,
when Starship Picard occurred, right? I'm like, "But none of you all dressed as Icheb, liars." There's been so many conventions, billions of people have gone through, not a single one dressed as Icheb, but suddenly now,
all the Icheb, closeted Icheb fans have come out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's something interesting there. I don't fully understand the cultural things that happen similar to like Friends or The Office or being like weirdly popular. I'm like, but why? They're old shows.
Yeah.
Why are you youngins watching these shows that like you were probably tiny kids when they came out?
Yeah. And maybe that's the whole streaming universe thing, right? They were kids, they had time, they've watched all these things, who knows? But yeah, I don't know. It's when they do these kinds of things where you get the uneven pricing, you're like, what's the rationale? What's the rationale in pricing one thing more than another when they all seem very similar?
Maybe they're riding the Star Trek Prodigy hype. They're like, look, you know who's not in a kids episodes of stuff? DS9 characters, but you know who is? Janeway. So just put it up there, kind of like anytime like I guarantee you, when the, what do you say was Secrets of Dumbledore comes out?
Yeah.
I guarantee you anybody who owns the licenses for the current Harry Potter films is going to be marathoning those the weekend going into it.
Oh yeah.
Right. Of like, catch in on the hype. When everybody's all in a Harry Potter mood, well, we've got Harry Potter too.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the same thing of like, hey, you're like all hyped about Star Trek Prodigy and Kate Mulgrew. Great. Well, we've got all these episodes here and we're charging you a premium for them while the attention's there.
Yeah. Did you, the Easter egg, we didn't mention the Easter egg at the beginning of this week's Disco, right? The USS Janeway.
Yes, that's true.
And the USS T'Pau.
Yeah, so I saw that one.
Which,
yeah, T'Pau showed up as the what do you call it? The trivia question in the Ready Room this week.
Oh yeah,
mm-hmm.
From like they were referencing the original series episode character, or
correct? Well, I mean, I guess spoilers for the question there, but like yes, the question was basically who was T'Pau, and then it's multiple choice.
Oh okay,
and the correct answer is the TOS character.
Yeah, and not the 1980s band that took the name and became popular for a little while.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, don't you remember T'Pau? Look up Heart and Soul by T'Pau. That's I actually have it on vinyl.
Wow.
I remember it was like me and 5 other people that were like, wait, you named your band, your like pop band after an obscure Star Trek character? Like, come on. But yes, they did. You'll find it on Spotify. Heart and Soul, T'Pau, great song.
I didn't know about that band's name. Feels like if you want to throw some DS9 love, maybe you go with and then you try to see if you can convince people who like typoed into Google search who are like really politically motivated, and you call your band Feel the Kern.
Yeah. I was wondering where you were going. I'm like, Morn? Nope. Quark? Nope.
Feel the Kern.
The Kern.
Worf's brother Kern, who gets some interesting DS9 episode stuff, and then is a nice typo squatting kind of thing in Google for Feel the Burn.
That's funny. Yep.
Just looking through all the $4 movies on them.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff on sale this week. Movie side too. Yeah.
Well, gotta love it.
Mm-hmm.
And HomeKit says it's time to go to bed.
Yep.
So my lights just all turned off.
It's time to go to bed.
Yep. All right, folks.
All right. Well, one more week till the end of Hawkeye, and something about it.
We're almost at the end of the shortest day of the year, and back into the summer.
Goodness. Yeah, I guess it's Gord's birthday next week, eh?
Who?
Gord,
yeah. All righty then.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Bye.
See you.
Yeah.
Where's the off button? Make it stop.
Gear Patrol calls their new dive watch the best sub-$500 dive watch, full stop. Men's Health rated them as the most stylish solar watch in the game. Who are we talking about? It's Movement. They're leveling up your gift giving with the sleekest watches you can buy and the biggest deals of the season. From their innovative ceramic materials to sexy automatic divers, from ultra-thin dress watches to solar-powered statement pieces, and everything in between, Movement is making sure you're the good gifter this year. For your family, your friends, or for yourself. And now you can take advantage of 30 to 50% off Movement's California clean watches, jewelry, and accessories to get them a gift they'll never forget. With fast, free shipping and returns and amazing bang for your buck, Movement makes for a relaxed shopping experience. And with one-size-fits-all watches, it's an easy, elegant gifting experience too. Shop 30 to 50% off now at mvmt.com. That's mvmt.com.
Today, we discuss Miro. Today, I want to talk about the hellscape that is technical diagramming, right? Everybody's nodding their heads right now, And there is a potential solution that I want to share. There was one name that several people brought up. I did some digging, and it's kind of nuts how much this program Miro has for developers. I have to share this. It could potentially be a game changer for you. So my favorite part about Miro is that half the work is already done. Like right now, typically we spend hours starting diagrams from scratch, gathering information. You get buy-in from every team. That's a lot of work to do. But Miro has a full set of integrations with the tools you're probably already using. And they also offer open APIs and SDKs for custom solutions for all those niche diagramming use cases we have to do, right? So the end result is the same, but it doesn't take forever. It's a massive, massive time saver. I'm transforming basic flowcharts and network architectures, and it all lives in one place. So are you using Miro? Have you used it? I want to hear. That's Miro.com.